On this day in Tudor history, the 10th of October 1530, Thomas Grey, 2nd Marquess of Dorset, magnate, soldier, jouster, court insider, and the future Lady Jane Grey's grandfather, died. He was laid to rest at Astley Collegiate Church in Warwickshire. I'm historian and author Claire Ridgway, and today let me introduce you to a man who moved effortlessly and sometimes dangerously through the last years of the Wars of the Roses and the reigns of the first two Tudor monarchs. Thomas Grey was born on the 22nd of June 1477. He was the third son and eventual heir of Thomas Grey, 1st Marquess of Dorset, and Cicely or Cecily Bonville. His paternal grandparents were Sir John Grey of Gruby in Leicestershire and Elizabeth Woodville, who went on to marry King Edward IV after Sir John Grey's death. His maternal grandparents were William Bonville, 6th Baron Harrington, and Lady Catherine Neville, who was the sister of Richard Neville, 16th Earl of Warwick, and a man known as the Kingmaker. As you can see, Thomas Grey was a young man with blood ties to power everywhere you looked. That pedigree didn't always feel like a blessing. In 1483, when the Duke of Buckingham's rebellion against Richard III collapsed, Thomas's father fled to Brittany, taking young Thomas with him. And in 1487, despite Henry VII being married to Elizabeth of York, Thomas's half-aunt, the new king still imprisoned Thomas's father during the Lambert Simnel scare. Thomas grew up understanding exactly how quickly the wheel of fortune could turn. Thomas was educated at Magdalen College School, Oxford, and according to George Cavendish, was taught by none other than Thomas Wolsey in Wolsey's early days. Honours followed. He was made a Knight of the Bath in 1494 and elected to the Order of the Garter in 1501. The year his father died, and Thomas, with his elder brothers gone, inherited his title, becoming 2nd Marquess of Dorset. Thomas was also a star of the tilt yard. As a skilled jouster, he served as chief answerer at the celebratory tournament for the wedding of Prince Arthur and Catherine of Aragon. Glory, pageantry, the whole Tudor theatre of chivalry. He later rode in the lists to mark the birth of Henry VIII's infant son, the Duke of Cornwall, and served as a mourner at the little boy's funeral just weeks later. Court life really could pivot from triumph to tragedy in the blink of an eye. In 1508, Henry VII had imprisoned Thomas in the Tower and then in Calais on suspicion of Yorkist conspiracy. Henry VIII released him in 1509, but for a time stripped him of his title. It didn't last. By 1512, Thomas was back in the king's service, but not all of his assignments were glorious. He commanded a campaign to recapture Guienne that foundered badly due to him and his soldiers switching from beer to wine and then wilting in the heat. He fared better in 1513, fighting at the Siege of Tournai and the Battle of the Spurs. And in 1514 he was chosen alongside Charles Brandon, Duke of Suffolk, to escort Princess Mary to France to marry Louis XII. He and Suffolk shone in the celebratory jousts there too. In 1520 he bore the sword of state at the Field of Cloth of Gold, and in 1521 he escorted Emperor Charles V from Gravelines to England. The crown clearly trusted his public presence. But Thomas could be difficult. In 1516, he and George, Baron Hastings, were hauled before Cardinal Wolsey in the Star Chamber after arriving at court with large retinues. Their feud had become a public hazard. It erupted again in 1524 when a quarrel between Thomas's cook and a Hastings man ballooned into a Leicester brawl involving 100 men. Wolsey forced both lords to post bonds of £1,000 and then moved Thomas away into responsibility with Princess Mary in the Welsh marches. In 1522, Thomas received 3 manors from the forfeited estates of the executed Duke of Buckingham, and he'd sat in judgment on the Duke in 1521. He was made Constable of Warwick Castle in 1528 and of Kenilworth in 1529, 2 great Midland strongholds. He also backed Henry VIII's quest for an annulment from Catherine of Aragon, serving as a principal witness during proceedings in 1529, And he put his name to articles against Wolsey when the great cardinal fell. Thomas had learned how to tack with the prevailing wind and how to survive it. A little piece of trivia now. In March 1524, when Henry VIII suffered a jousting accident, it was Thomas who handed the king his lance before the king lowered his visor. Thomas married twice. His first wife, Eleanor St. John, died childless. With his second, Margaret Wotton, widow of William Medley, he had 8 children, 4 sons and 4 daughters. Among them was Henry Grey, later Duke of Suffolk and the father of Lady Jane Grey. So, through Thomas runs a direct line to the tragic, short-reigning Queen Jane. By the end of his life, Thomas was one of the richest men in England, owning land in 16 counties and well over 100 manors. His mother, the formidable Cicely Bonville, had died in April 1530, increasing his holdings. But Thomas only enjoyed that vast inheritance for a few months. He died on the 10th of October 1530. Thomas's life reads like a Tudor toolkit. Noble birth, jousting prowess, foreign service, local muscle, occasional overreach, timely penitence, and a fortune to show for it. Now, if you enjoyed meeting one of the men behind Lady Jane Grey's surname, please do give this a like and subscribe for more daily Tudor history. I'll see you soon. Bye bye.